yours. Thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. Just a quick question. Can everyone hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, everyone. So like I said, thank you guys for having me. I don't think Vicky's on this call, Vicky Swank, but, wanted to say, special thank you to Vicky Swank for being the one who wanted me to go ahead and present to you guys this leadership panel. I also do want to thank the entire Enactus team who has been working tirelessly and very hard to be able to make this event happen. So, special shout out to everyone. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let me just share my screen here real quick. I hope it'll let me. Let me see. Okay, can everyone see my screen, right? Okay, hold on, let me see. What does the chat say? Hold on, let me see. I think I'm having some can't see the chat for whatever reason. Let me see here. Can you guys see my screen, right? I'm just wanting to make sure before I start.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so this is going to be my presentation. It's the leadership panel portion. So again, for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Carlos Paniagua. I am a recent graduate from Heritage University. I started school in 2016 and then barely graduated this year in 2020. And I wanted to start off this leadership panel with a quote that really inspired me to understand what it truly means to be a leader. So I want to start off with the quote, "If you mean it, then you will make it." I'll obviously touch on this very later on, but I just want to have you understand that when you are a leader, you are expected to kind of raise the bar, so to say, but also being able to be held accountable for whatever it is that you want to do. And I think that if you pursue whatever you want to do in your life, then you will truly be able to make it. That's the idea behind that notion. But on today's agenda, we are going to talk about the definition of what it is to be a leadership, as well as having my own definition of leadership and the opportunities that have been presented to me while being a leader. My professional career, as well as the struggles, the hardships, because I know we all go through them, as well as my take on the entire COVID-19 pandemic situation and how it has changed our world in a very unusual way. And then I'm going to end it with my word of advice. There's 3 key points. I don't think one piece of advice is enough, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think there's, as a leader, there's multiple, and there's definitely a lot of advice points that I could give, but I felt that there was 3 key ones that when I was reflecting on my own career and my own path of what I could offer, what advice I could offer to you guys as well. So we're going to start off with the leadership definition. So according to dictionary.com, the leadership means the position or function of a leader, a person who guides or directs a group. In my definition, I feel I think it's also similar to the Enactus one as well, but this one says it's the ability to turn an idea from scratch and build it with others to transform it into a reality. As you can see from the picture, this is kind of what I'm talking about. When you are working and then your boss is just bossing you around all the time, that's more of not being a leader. That's more of having their employees do their work as well. Because what I feel when it's a leader, you're the boss, you have to be able to take accountability for that and also help others, because we're all on the same mission, so to say. That's what this picture is referring. That's what true leadership is. It's able to be helped out with so many other people as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my university leadership opportunities. And what was that? Yes. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my university leadership opportunities with Alpha. Sadly, I don't think Alpha is really a club anymore when I had graduated. But what I did with Alpha was in the fall of 2019, I was the chapter president for Alpha. Anybody who doesn't know what Alpha is, it's the Association of Latino Professionals for America. So what we did with Alpha was try to be able to gain an expansive network. We were like the second business club in the school at the time. And we really wanted to just give people an opportunity to make connections outside of the Yakima Valley, because I understand that, coming from Yakima, it's not that big of a place and you have to be able to network with other people. And I know that everybody has different ambitions and different goals, but being able to expand that network was very important for us. So what we did with Alpha, we were able to coordinate events. We were also able to host events and take on opportunities at corporate headquarters. To the left here, you can see that this is the time when I had actually went to go visit Microsoft for an Alpha meeting. The interesting part about this story, I don't know if any of my friends who were in Alpha at the time had seen this, but we had actually all applied to go to that same event, and I was the only one chosen out of all 5 of us at the time. And I think one of my friends from Alpha at the time joined me to be able to take me to that event. So if Tim is on here, thanks to you. Then, a couple other people here as well, some familiar faces. If you guys know Charo, great professor. And as well on the right over here, you can see that this is what I'm talking about by coordinating events and then hosting the events to take on those opportunities that I meant. And being able to familiarize people with the club as to what it was also very important. And I feel that what we did with Alpha was very impactful because it was necessarily something that was going to be able to help others in the long term, because we always thought about ideas long term. And that, unfortunately, this was my only leadership position. I will mention, later on as to why this was my only leadership position. But other than that, that was really the first time where I was able to just, solidify all of my leadership and interpersonal skills and finally bring them to a school setting that had, this club, so to say. This opportunity was what helped me enhance that, so to say. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my early university career and opportunities. So for me, I graduated from Sunnyside High School in 2016. I began Heritage University in the fall of 2016. I worked as a restaurant assistant manager. And again, that's kind of been my first job, kind of just taking it to develop my own interpersonal and leadership skills. I actually wasn't even an assistant manager when I first got hired. I was relatively just, regular cashier or cook. And then within 6 months' time, I was already being placed as a leader, which was kind of crazy if you think about it in that sense. But I felt that that was important because I also understood that now that I was just an assistant manager, even though I was only doing that just to be able to get by at the time, I felt that that was important for me to help build my character and to help build my foundation of what I was going to do later on, as well as my work ethic was very important. And this might surprise a lot of people, but by going to school and work at the full time, it led me to being debt free. And now you might be asking yourself, well, how was I able to do that? Because anybody who works and goes to school at the same time understands that it's not a very easy process to do, and it's a relatively hard, and it teaches you a lot about time management and all these other factors that contribute into it. But it's very important that that there was a debt free, because I have plans and projections to be going into the future of what I wanted to do, which is right now. But at that point, I was just projecting myself as to what I wanted to do. Obviously, those years of going to school were some of the most mentally taxing, emotionally, physically, and financially burdening, hardships of my entire life. But by that same token, the reason why, it's also because those years where I was struggling so much was what led me to be, was what helped me be more successful, so to say. And that's what made those years more memorable. Was because of the own struggles that I was going through at the time of being, being a full-time student or being a full-time worker as well. That was a big chip on my shoulder to carry, but at the same expense, it also helped me and taught me a lot about my leadership. So now the start of my professional career. So after graduating in the fall of 2019, I started my career with Ramsey Companies as a social media marketing intern. Now, I know you guys might be wondering, well, how was I able to get something like this? Because I know that in Yakima, they didn't really have it like that at the time. It was relatively hard to find something like that. What was funny, it's not necessarily funny, it's more of an interesting story, is that my good friend that I'm still in contact with, John Sheb, if you're on this call, John, props to you, a great guy all around as well. But he had actually referred me because they were actually looking for someone at the time to be able to help them out with their social media stuff. And, within like 2 weeks, I was, onboarded. And by the time I was done, this position really taught me a lot about what digital marketing is and the importance of social media marketing. And not just the importance of social media marketing, just the entire aspect of what social media really is. And after, kind of completing my internship, I was offered a 3-month contract as a digital marketing specialist for Ramsey Companies. And, I had nothing but great things to say about these people. Everyone on this picture was, was relatively awesome. And I don't think I would have been able to get through that entire internship and through those 3 months without them. So I will dive a little bit into what digital marketing is, just because I feel like this is actually very curious as to what I do on a daily basis. So what all of this is on that you're seeing are the social media calendars, KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and data performance. So a lot of what I had, this is what's very interesting to me. When I went to school and I was majoring my concentration in marketing, I was only taught the fundamentals. I was not taught a lot of what goes into this actually, because I've actually seen and understood that school probably only taught me, at least from my area, it only taught me like 10, 15%. The other 85% was just self-taught and just a bunch of research that I had to find on the internet. And this is actually what's really cool and very exciting about these positions, because, you know, you get to make things, you get to finally develop this creativity that you've had for so long. So this is, I'm just going to touch on each one individually. So like on this first picture here, we're talking about the calendars. You know, every single day, you know, you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then you have the post, and then you have day post reach. And I'll get to this other part in a little bit. But this was the calendar. This was like our plan, so to say. But you also have to keep in mind that plans change and come and go. So there's always important, it's always important to have a backup plan as well. And the calendars really helped us understand what we wanted to send the company into, because we were trying to create a better storytelling. If anybody who's not majoring in business doesn't know what marketing is, the basic understanding of marketing, it's storytelling. That's really all it is. And by doing this, I felt like we were able to really understand how the company was going to grow on a digital aspect, which it did. And I will get to that in a little bit. And like I said, anybody who knows Wolf Den, they are in Wapato. And this was actually their stuff from the entire January report when I was still doing my internship with them. So the Wolf Den total, you know, kind of going back to, you know, week 1, week 2, and then, you know, seeing all this data and then seeing all these graphs was just really showing how the company was starting to gain a really strong social media and digital aspect presence. And now here on this part of my screen, you can see that this is the report that was generated in the first quarter, you know, first quarter from January through March. And you can see just by the numbers themselves of how quickly and how rapidly everything grew. And there's other factors that contributed to that as well. You know, it's not just myself, it's also being able to show a human side of storytelling and marketing that a lot of people probably weren't really so keen on at the time. But other than that, this is just a little bit of a dive as to what digital marketing is. There's a lot, believe me, there's so much more I could talk about, from email marketing to search engine marketing to content optimization, content marketing to what else? There's like I said, there's a million things. It's not just like one simple marketing aspect. There is a lot of other aspects that I could talk into. But for now, this is just a little bit of what I had done in my time. And now I'm going to talk about what my next steps were, because they were relatively hard. And if you see like Kermit the Frog, which I'm just trying to be funny at this point, but those were relatively hardships, because I was a little bit worried. You know, after I signed my contract, I was starting to scout for other opportunities within digital marketing. Now, anybody who wishes to have a career in marketing understands that this is a very risky situation to be in, because it's understandably so that this is a very competitive field. And unfortunately, because of COVID-19, the job market became 5-8 times more competitive than it already was. And I'll touch on COVID later on throughout the entire video. But because of that, that made things more understandable. And to have you guys understand a little bit as to how competitive this was, I applied to hundreds of roles, only had about 5 interviews, and I never heard back from any of them. And that's relatively concerning, because, you know, when I was told that I was not going to be making that much money through these hardships, it was true, but it was already too late, because I had already fallen in love with this entire digital marketing career, and I wanted to pursue it full time despite whatever anybody else said of me. And that's where the leader came in me, where I wanted to take that initiative to pursue this full time, even though I understood the risk, I understood the consequences of what could possibly happen if this doesn't work out. And, you know, through that, I was able to develop more of my character at the time. So at the time, right when my contract, and I'll get to this right now in a little bit, and by the time I start getting into my contract around April, I'm starting to think, okay, well, what do I want to do right now? Where do I see my career going? Because I only have a little bit of time left, and I want to be able to project myself. Like I said, again, that's kind of where my debt-free kind of intuition kind of came in, where being able to project yourself long term, where you wanted to go years from now. And because of that, I just thought, okay, I need to relocate somewhere where I know that my profession is a little bit more more presently dominant, and where I feel like I will get also my, my experience. Because I think one of the things that I also realized very early on is that my career is that I didn't really get that college experience. And that's not because I didn't want to, it was mainly just because I was pressured with time. And when I'm pressured with time, I just felt like there was such a time crunch all those years. It was just hard to be able to be active within clubs. That's why I mentioned earlier, that's why my biggest, I think the only regret I probably have from college is not being as active as I probably should have. But then again, I'm just touching on the reason as to, being able to just work and go to school at the same time is not the best suitable thing for everybody. And I understand that only a few people can be able to juggle all of that. And so at this point, I'm thinking, okay, well, what is the best thing for me to do? Where am I going to relocate? So then I just think, okay, let me transition to Seattle. Probably not the best idea to do with this entire pandemic situation, but I just didn't see another way as to how I was going to be able to further my career without being able to do this. So once I transitioned to Seattle, this is where my struggles really started to really show. So after projecting my long-term goals, I decided the next step was to relocate, none other than to Seattle. And like I had mentioned, I knew people would tell me that, what I was doing wasn't the best thing to do, that, what I was going to move wasn't relatively the smartest thing to do either. But I just felt like in my heart and in my gut that this was the right thing to do at the right time. And, it technically was, and like I said, the hardest part, I think, is just knowing that I had nothing lined up. Like I had literally had no job. I only had my girlfriend and her family. They were the only people I really knew at the time. And I really just wanted to be able to take a risk. It was literally just me packing my bags one day and just wanting to be risk orientated. And, by the time my contract had ended, I had a few marketing side jobs, but I wasn't making a lot of money. Now, again, I'm touching on the money portion side of this. And, if anybody watching this is really interested in the money management panel of the portion, Vicky Spine will talk more about that as well. But if you guys want like a full picture as to how much I was making within these jobs, it was probably less than $400 a month. And that was somewhat concerning. At least I had enough money saved up over here by the time I had been able to move, but I just realized this is how hard it is to be able to make it into this profession. It's not necessarily so easy to be able to do this. And ultimately, I just left these side gigs because of false promises and the broken systems that these companies had. And I don't mean to put these companies in a bad spot. And the reason I just don't mention them is just because that's what they felt like. They felt like a side gig rather than a real job. And the false promises of, oh, I'm going to be able to help you get into corporate. Oh, I'm going to be able to, do this for you. And it just felt so jaded. You hear those things for so long and you want to be jaded, but the leader in me knew that I wanted to be able to excel with what I wanted to do. And, and the broken system part is just because of, personalities not mixing and things just being, so out of hand that it was just time for me to figure out what I wanted to do next. So then I get the opportunity with Fiverr. So after meeting people through my previous companies, I had been approached by a former coworker to work at a small agency named Fiverr. Now, Fiverr is an online marketplace, but they also do have a small little branch here in Seattle. So Fiverr is an online marketing agency that helps customers from around the world to build their online presence. So like I said, it is it's basically a lot of what digital marketing is as well. And, I just have a few screenshots here of what this is as well. So like I said, we have people literally working from Massachusetts all the way to this one. This is like a little ad that we were creating a little bit ago that had made life insurance through Facebook. And this is just the process of what it goes through. And it's important to understand how this entire COVID situation has been able to kind of change things in a very different perspective. But again, the reason why I wanted to do this is because I wanted to pursue it full time. I was in love. I am in love with it. I just didn't see myself doing anything else at the meantime. So for me, it was very important to understand, okay, and to really just gain that experience. That's what I'm trying to say, is to gain that experience that I wanted to be able to pursue in the long run. And also just, get my feet wet as well into understanding what it really means to be in digital marketing, because like I said, it's not an easy field to get into, especially right now with this entire COVID situation. And speaking of COVID, here's my take on it. COVID-19 has shifted our normal way of living and has adapted to this virtual reality. And what I mean by virtual reality is because to some extent, I feel like now we are more inclined to technology now more than ever. You see people, having work meetings, you see people watching games from their home and having screens on the stadiums. That's how bad this entire situation has affected us. But I also feel it has shaped our society to really grow as one by everyone doing their part. An example would be having your mask on, socially distancing from yourself so nobody else gets sick until a vaccine comes out. But I think the hardest part about COVID-19 is seeing how much it has affected everything in our society. And I'm not just talking about this from a job standpoint. I had seen something, I don't know if Matt Kincaid is on this call, but Professor Matt Kincaid had mentioned something on his Facebook about knowing and understanding how bad the situation of people not being able to go to school is right now, especially with all the financial resources and everything that people are going through in order to be able to attend school, is already really hard as it is. And I think that it definitely has impacted our society in a very negative way. And I don't think that that's something that anybody can be comfortable with. It's obviously a very hard situation. It's obviously not the best suitable situation, but I definitely do think that, maybe within the next few months or in the next few years, hopefully we can recover from this, but even just trying to recover from this is going to be relatively hard. So now I just want to touch on my word of advice. Like I said, there's 3 key points. I didn't just want to do one, I wanted to do 3 based on my own experiences. The first one is embrace your struggles. Everyone's going to struggle. I know that we've all gone through struggles, whether that's interpersonally or professionally. We have to embrace those struggles. You have to learn how to embrace every struggle that you go through, because it develops your character. And as a leader, that's what's going to help you and fuel you to be even better than where you were yesterday. Be risk oriented. Don't be afraid to take risks. For me, I feel though, as if, like I said, one of my biggest regrets was just not being inclined to being able to be more active within clubs and all these other participation things that happen in school. And I feel like a lot of that is my fault for not taking that initiative to be able to do that. But just be risk orientated, take risks. Don't be afraid to, start over, or don't be afraid to take those risks, to take those leaps of faith, whatever cheesy, corny thing that could possibly come out of me right now is just being able for me to be able to tell all of you is be risk oriented. That's the biggest piece of advice. And lastly, the last piece of advice, because I feel like this is just the strongest one out of all of them, is that if you mean it, you will make it. My definition of meaning it is certainly being able to take whatever it is that you want to do with your life and being able to apply it no matter the circumstances. I understand greatly that there are going to be people all the time that will put you down, that will never see what you're actually trying to do for yourself. And, to some extent, that is a little discouraging from other people, because it kind of does create that self-doubt with you. Like, is this really what I should be doing? Should I go work somewhere else and do something and settle for less than what I really deserve? Because it does create that. I think long before anything, you have to anticipate and know that you are going to fail. Success is not easy. I'm certainly not anywhere near where I want to be yet, so I'm not saying I'm successful or anything, but I understand that, you have to be risk oriented. You have to be understanding that whatever it is that you do, whatever dream, whatever goal, whatever it is that you have going on right now, is that you are going to be able to do it, and you are going to be able to pursue whatever it is you want to do. And I truly do mean that by making it. I don't mean making it as in making a whole bunch of money or being able to be arrogant or having a really big house or anything like that. What I mean by making it is just being successful, because there's different iterations of success. I've understood that completely. But by making it, at least in my definition, is seeing like people like my parents being incredibly happy that I graduated, is seeing people like my girlfriend and her family being super proud of what I wanted to do. And I feel though, as if to some point when I felt as if I had quote unquote made it, was when I was waking up every single day knowing I was going to go to work and feeling so excited of what I was doing, rather than, just waking up dreading to go to school or going to work or something like that. And that's really the important thing. That's what I mean. You can do, the hardships are inevitable. But I feel though, as if you have the perseverance, you will be able to make it. And that's where a lot of my underdog mentality came from, is to always just prevail, because ultimately the underdogs do prevail. And I do understand that whatever it is that you want to set out to do, you are going to make it. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for a Q&A panel. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to say whatever questions they are, or, it doesn't have to be any questions. It can just be, comments, concerns, inquiries, anything. I'm open to all suggestions. Whoops. I don't know why this keeps doing that.
I do have a question. So I got a bachelor's degree in audio production last year. I graduated last year, and then I started this year with Heritage to get my master's in teaching so I can teach. I decided that I was going to change career modes, because when I first started going to Full Sail, is where I got my degree, my bachelor's degree from. I didn't even think about the location that I was in is not the best place to have a degree like that, when, like, for instance, where I live, the closest place that would have a company where I would be able to work for would be Seattle. The problem that I've run into is not so much a problem, because I don't want, it's more of a challenge, I guess. I have kids that don't live with me, and so I guess when it comes to something like that, how do you think I would go about being able to, if I wanted to, say I wanted to work for a audio production company, but I had to move to Seattle. My kids live over here. How would you think the best way to go about something like that would happen?
Well, I mean, I will just say that, I don't have any kids. So for me, I feel though, I think if you're very passionate about audio production, I definitely think it's something you would be able to pursue. And, if you say your kids live over there in Yakima, and if you were to be interested in moving in Seattle, here to Seattle, I think the best thing you can do is just come and work on the weekdays, and then go visit them on the weekends. Something along those lines. It's kind of hard for me to kind of really grasp that, I guess, just because I'm trying to understand it from your perspective, and understandably so. And, I just think that, I think for me, at least, just kind of going about that, that's what I think that's maybe what I would do at the time.
All right. Thank you.
Again, just opening this up for a Q&A panel, because I know we are only a little bit, not necessarily short on time, we're actually a little bit on time, but like I said, you guys are free to ask anything. You guys can, say whatever you guys want to ask, or you guys can have some comments, some concerns, just questions. It doesn't necessarily have to pertain to, this whole presentation. It can just be, just something out of the blue as well.
So are you getting used to the people that live in Seattle? You know how it's so diverse. How do you feel you're accommodating to those needs?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I mean, over here, there's so many multinational cultures that I feel though, as if to some extent I do feel left out, because at least from coming from a Hispanic community like Yakima, it's really hard to be able to not necessarily feel like I fit in, but it's necessarily hard because you see how many more different diverse cultures there are here. In Yakima, if I remember correctly, I feel like the biggest portion of Yakima was Hispanics and Caucasians, but over here it's like, it's a whole different world, because it's, I'm coming from a small town to a relatively big city. There's no doubt there's going to be so many different cultures, but I feel though, as if I've been adapting to the people here as well. And, the people here are very friendly. They're not necessarily, mean or anything. But other than that, I've just been, I guess you just get used to it after a little bit.
That's good. Like, it's kind of hard for some people to adjust, and that's good that you're adjusting so well.
And thank you for that. Yeah, and I think like you mentioned as well, adjusting right now, especially with this whole COVID situation, is not the necessarily the best thing to do. But it's like we don't have any other option other than to conform and to adjust to whatever it is that to the people, to the environment, just to the entire area is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm happy for you.
Have you ever struggled with the fact that you are like young in the program as well? Like because you were so fast paced with everything and had all those opportunities open to you at such a young age. Has that ever become like a roadblock for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think being very young as well, I think that also did cause like not necessarily so much, but just my ability and my willingness to learn, I think is something that really kind of ticked people off to some extent because I'm kind of the person that I want to just learn everything as to the best that I possibly can, but other people didn't want to see me do that, and because like you mentioned right now, having all these opportunities at a very young age, I felt like to some extent that does become a little bit of a roadblock, especially once you start applying to all these other like all these massive corporations asking you for like 7 years of experience when you only have like less than a year or 2 years of experience does put you down for a little bit, but I don't think that should ever be a factor as well, because I think if you're qualified and if you have the skill set to be able to do anything because of the limited amount of experience, and if you're able to showcase that to a person, then I do think that someone will be able to listen out to you as well. But I don't, like I said, I don't feel that that's a factor that should be, but for whatever reason, it always has been to some extent. I guess I can give you a quick story on that. When I was working at the restaurant, I was only 19, 20 at the time. And, because I was only that young, they had put me in a leadership position for so long, for a relatively short amount of time, that I know that that caused a lot of jealousy and a lot of conflict, interpersonal conflict, with a lot of older people, because they were, not necessarily bad mouthing. And I don't mean to put people in a bad spot like that, but, a lot of people just felt really not necessarily insecure, but just a lot of jealousy because, again, I was relatively young. I was just trying to get by, and for whatever reason, that just didn't settle well with people. And like going back to your question, like, do I feel like my age kind of does derail me? Maybe to some extent, but I don't think it should be a factor.
Yeah, well said.
I don't know why this keeps doing that. Let me see. I'm just making sure. Okay, why is it not doing this? Okay, I'll just leave the floor for, I guess, maybe another 5 minutes, see if anybody has any questions, anything else before I turn it back over to Rosario. Okay. So it's been a little bit than 2 minutes. Okay, so other than that, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys who participated in this. I know that it was a little bit short, so to say, but other than that, like I said, I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience and wanted to be able to hopefully inspire some of you guys as well to be able to pursue whatever ambition and goal that you might have, and just to help you guys understand that regardless of the situations that are happening right now in the world, then you will be able to achieve whatever you can. And never give in. I guess that would just be another piece of advice I have, is never give in. I know that all of you guys on this call are awesome. You guys are all going to do great things. And I'm not just saying that to sound very cliche or anything, but that's relatively true, because I know that I think not necessarily that I think, but I believe that everybody here has a has a really big purpose in their life, and whatever that purpose may be, I hope that you all are able to see that. So I want to thank you all again for your time, and I do want to end it just with this, saying thank you for your time. You're all awesome.